Good morning. This is Dr. Mike, and this is lecture three for week three of Ethics 205. And I just want to spend some time with you talking about some general things because these are some really great chapters. And I hope that you'll take the time to read those and to understand them better and in detail. I realize that in some places the reading in this course is a little bit dense and hard to get through. These chapters are not like that because they're much more practical and talk about the things that we find probably more interesting in our own lives. First of all, we start out thinking about environmental ethics. And if you've been around any time this week or lately, you realize that we've had a number of storms and things that have happened in America that have indicated the fact that global warming and other environmental issues may be true. It's one of those issues like we have with other things where people want to deny it and put it off and ignore it. But the reality is it's becoming gradually worse and worse to the point that you can't deny the fact that there is something going on. We see the polar ice caps melting and water levels rising, and we realize that if global warming continues in the direction it's going, that there'll be about 1 billion people on the planet that will be displaced because water is going to rise and cover the continents around where they live, and so it's going to be pushing people inward, and of course tightening the screws on where we live. And so that's going to cause all kinds of problems. And most people will look at it and they'll laugh when they say, well, hey, we're only talking about a 1 degree temperature change. And the fact is that the planet that we live on is just that sensitive to change. Our location in the universe, if we were 1 degree closer to the sun, we would burn up. And if we were 1 degree further away, we'd freeze to death. That's not a lot. But we're in a optimal position for life to function on the planet. And by the same token, a 1 degree change can melt the polar ice caps, raise the water levels, and cause us quite a few catastrophic conditions. New Orleans, for instance, is below the sea. So basically, back when Hurricane Katrina hit there and caused a lot of devastation, it was because they had the water levees to hold the ocean back because they actually live below the sea level. And so it was quite easy for the water to come in. Towns like cities like Charleston, South Carolina, much of it is flooded every time there's a storm because they are below the sea level. So environmental ethics are something that we do need to think about, whether we want to or not. We realize that storms and all these other things are just harbingers of the fact that the environment is absolutely indispensable for us. We can't live without it. We've got to have oxygen to breathe. We have to have sunlight. We have to have the things that come from that. And so there's a lot of value in the environment that you'll be reading about and talking about during this part of the course. So I encourage you to do that and to talk about the things that we need to think about. If you did a cost analysis, a benefit analysis, you'd understand how vital these things are to us. And then we think about environmental justice when we think about that. Uh, Many of us on the planet have blessings that other people on the planet do not have. And so, things like clean water and clean air and all those things. And we realize there are people that don't have even a stove or anything to cook on, that they cook over an open fire, which further exacerbates the planet problem and causes, smog and things like that, or that they're breathing the smoke in that's actually killing them because they can't do any better. They have to do that. There are natives who are cutting down the rainforest, and the rainforests are vitally important on the planet to us having oxygen. They make most of the Earth's oxygen, and but they need the wood for fire, and so they don't have or to keep warm, and they don't have any other way to do that. So we can understand that climate change is being driven by a lot of factors upon the Earth that we could probably affect if we were to address them together, and we probably could have a marked effect upon them. And then there's also the ozone depletion that is a problem. And interestingly enough, during the COVID pandemic, where a lot of people are not going to work, staying home, burning more electricity, and most of our electricity comes from coal, it's literally worsened the atmosphere that it would have been if you had gone to work every day and done what you normally do. But the ozone depletion is that layer around the planet that keeps the sun from actually baking us every day, and it's semi-permeable. We have carbon monoxide and oxygen exchange there that is vital to the upkeep of the planet. One of the interesting things about the ozone depletion, though, the number one factor to ozone depletion is cattle. Large cattle farms and places, things like that, you'll notice that the ozone is much thinner around those areas where a lot of what is going into the air from there is eating up or depleting the ozone. And so it's not all just human, but it's also pollution and waste. Have you ever stopped to think about the waste on this planet? When I go to take my trash to the bin, I'm thinking about I'm one person, and look how much trash I generate in a week, and multiply that by 2.5 billion people. And it's a wonder we have any space left on the planet, because we all manufacture a large portion of garbage every week. And just think about it, if every family in the world had the same garbage or the same amount of garbage and trash that you have, if all that is sent to a landfill somewhere, and usually it is, then how in the world are we going to survive that? Because that's only going to get worse, and this planet is literally junking itself. I mean, right now in the Pacific Ocean, we have a mass of plastics that have gathered there that is the size of the state of Texas, and it gets into the bigger fish like whales and sharks and things, and kills them because it gets into their system, and they get tangled up in it or whatever, and it ends up killing them and causing an economic disaster. So there's a lot to be said for things like, and how do you do that ethically? How do you make a difference in that? And of course, many of us will try to ration our glass and keep things separate and put them in different bins where it can be reclaimed and reused. And don't ever discount that. Doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it is a lot when it comes to doing that, or trying to buy recyclable cart containers, or when you go to the grocery store, you can take your own bags and don't use the plastic. That plastic is one of the great problems, because it goes to the landfill and it stays there forever and ever. Other than the environmental preservation, this week you're going to talk about animal ethics, and that's a very interesting subject, because in my lifetime that we have literally cloned an animal. That means you take one cell from an animal. You take one cell from us. If you take a skin cell, for instance, and look at it under the microscope, that cell has the entire genetic code to make it a carbon copy of you. And so cloning is that. And we've actually done that with Dolly the sheep. And there's some really interesting movies out there. I wish that you would take a moment to try to look at those. But the problem is with animals, is it really necessary? Most people feel like that it is necessary as a way to make food, that we can't grow enough animals to keep people fed. And when you think about that, think about how much chicken, for instance, is cooked and served and eaten every day just in your town, and multiply that by every town in the United States of America, or every home where it's cooked. And you have to ask the question, how in the world do you make enough chicken or make enough hamburger to meet all these needs every day and grow those animals out? Well, a lot of times they'll use hormones to grow chickens out every 90 days or beef out every 90 days. That has a marked downside, because those hormones, when you eat them and ingest them into your body, begin to change you and make you into a different human being. For instance, one of the big, for instances, is the puberty age of children, which used to be around 12 to 13, is now moved back to about 8. And that is largely due to hormones in the water supply, hormones in the meat supply. People dump their old medications down the commode. That gets into the water supply. Fish actually will ingest that. We now have fish that have male and female sex organs and things that have come out as a result of those kinds of mutations. And so it's something to think about how we ethically, how do you want to be on this planet? Do you want to just waste and use and throw away and not even think about the other person? Or do you want to have some kind of a plan, the purpose, and as we have said, it may not feel like that it's a great deal of purpose, but it is greatly helpful to take these things into our thinking. Maybe when you go to the grocery store, you will buy meat that is non-hormone fed and that kind of thing to help to alleviate you taking that into your own body, or or maybe you become a vegetarian, as some people do. So I hope you'll enjoy the chapter on cloning, and I hope that it will bring to mind some things. And of course, the Koreans claim that they cloned a human being. We haven't seen positive proof of that, but they technically could do that. I don't know that I'd want another human being with exactly my same DNA. That is different than from being a twin. A twin, you do have some differences, and those differences are usually good things and not bad things. Another thing you're going to look at this week is biotechnology and bioengineering, because we now can do a lot of things that we could not do before in the way of robotics. There are people who've had strokes or paralyzed from the neck down that have been, because of robotics, able to walk. We talked about the runner in South Africa who lost both of his legs, and yet he could run on these sled-like devices, and he competed in world events doing that. And of course, cloning also would be a bioengineering device. Is that ethical? The other thing is it ethical to create organs, body organs outside the body, and use them for transplant? One of the big areas we have problems in is getting enough transplanted materials to keep people alive, like hearts and lungs and livers. And of course, COVID has made that much worse now, because the need for liver and lung transplants have gone up tremendously. But is it ethical then to use the technology that we have to generate new livers and new lungs as a way of keeping people alive? That would be, if you're a nurse and you're going into that field, that is going to be one of the big fields that you have to think about in the days to come, is whether you want to, where do you stand on that? And you may not have to make a major decision as far as working or not working over that issue, but by the same token, we become less and less special in our humanity as we go along. That was one of the fears that people had at the turn of the 19th century or the 20th century was, where's it all going to end? Are we just going to be, body parts and that kind of thing that are thrown together? And that's really what, in many ways, it has become. It's a manufacturing, you're just a machine, and you go in and get the parts fixed or get the machine, if it wears out, then you're pretty much gone. So all of these chapters, I think you'll find something here worth thinking about, and in your own ethics as you go about your own life. What is it where do you draw the line? Do you draw the line at heart transplants? Or, I remember Christian Menard giving the first heart transplant in South Africa, of all places. And the guy lived. And then Barney Clark got an artificial heart, and he died the most excruciating death after 6 weeks of just being tortured. But they use that artificial heart now without problems to keep people alive until they can find a regular heart for them. So all these things, we just hear the tip of the iceberg when it comes to understanding all these things. Well, I just wanted to share some things with you that I thought would be helpful this week as you read and study your materials. Ask questions, delve in the materials, and let me know how I can help you. Thank you.